Okay, so we have our base color done now. Now what we're going to do is we are just going to generate a simple roughness. Wood doesn't really often need a very specific roughness, so it can be quite simple. The way that we're going to do this is by adding a grayscale conversion node. And what I always like to do is I always like to grab my very base over here, like the color, convert it into a grayscale. And then I like to add an histogram range node after this. The histogram range node is just easy because if we set the range all the way up, we can basically use the position to control it. Lighter means that it looks very dull. Darker means that it looks very shiny. So we want to go ahead and go for something like it's wood. So, oh, actually, you know what? 0.5 might actually be fine. So I do want to give it like a little bit of a shine. Then on top of this, we are basically going to layer masks, which will give us the variation that we need. Let's do like a few blends. Here, like 3, so you can just do 3 in a row, for example. And then the first one is going to be this blend, which is going to be like a bit more dirt. I like to set my blending mode to add, which will basically mean white. And then it will just add this dirt on top of it, which can be quite cool, that this just looks a little bit duller. Then we have this dirt over here, which is our brownish dirt. Let's once again also set this to add, but let's not make this one too intense. And then finally we will have our whitish dirt mostly, yes, because this one is just our knots. So our whitish dirt over here. Let's go ahead and set this to be subtract, to just give it, oops, that's multiply. Here, to make it black, and that will just give it like a little bit more shine. So as you can see, super easy to just create a base roughness. We can right click and add a frame to it. Call it roughness, and there we go. So, base color, normal, seems like everything is done. We can save our scene. And let's go ahead and try this out, shall we? So, if we go over here, I just need to go ahead and I need to open up my folder. No, wait, that's the images. Plain wood, final. There we go, so everything is in here. So, if we now go ahead and we can just add this to our wood plane. We have our albino map, strike that in. And we have our roughness map. Strike that in also. Okay, so that's already looking pretty damn good, if I say so myself. Let's see, what is the problem that we have over here? If I have a look at this, you can hold shift and right mouse button to rotate your sky around. And I feel like that the wood color is pretty good. Maybe my roughness is a bit too shiny. So let's go ahead and go into our histogram range. Let's make this a little bit lighter, to 0.6 for example. There we go. See, now that looks a bit duller. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust my lights a little bit. So here we have this light. Let's make this a little bit brighter. And this is like our main light. The light coming from over here. Yeah, let's set this halfway so that we get this. Now, a cool thing that you can do. If you want to have this shadow to be softer, you can go into your area and shape. And if you set your diameter bigger, your shadow will basically become a little bit softer. Second light is the light over here. This light I'm going to have not as intense, but I'm going to just move it like still from the top. I don't know, maybe we actually want to make this light a little bit more like orange or yellow. Like a bit more intense. Something like this, so like a yellow-orange color, something like that. You can also mess around a little bit more with the brightness, and then you can of course mess around with the diameter to make this a harsh or a soft cut. And finally, we have this light over here at the bottom. Let's make that one a little bit brighter. And let's see, that one is actually already pretty good. Let's set the intensity to 6.4. And the color is also pretty good. So as you can see over here, we already have like quite a nice looking wood. The knots over here, they are a little bit too obvious in my case. The wood itself is looking really nice. I quite like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, let's go ahead and go back into our base color. So now we are just going to balance some stuff out. Let's see, so here I add these knots. I'm going to make them a little bit more desaturated and maybe a tiny bit lighter. Here, so let's set down the saturation a little bit to 0.47. And maybe set the lightness to 0.54. And then if you switch back, you can see that now it has changed. It's maybe a little bit too light, so let's do 0.52. There we go, see? And now they blend in a little bit nicer. Another thing is, let's go into our camera A, turn off our lock, and there's two things that we can do. So the sharpen, you can always play around with that. Although you need to be careful with this if you are working in 1080p. And the reason for this is because in 1080p, it will always look a little bit less sharp as it would normally look like when we are of course working on 4K. Now what we can also do is we can actually turn on our ray tracing, which will actually make not that big of a difference for models like this, but still some difference. Let's turn on our ray tracing, and then you can see that the lighting specifically makes a difference. Now what you can see here is you can see some jaggedness. This is because in ray tracing the lighting will often use your actual geometry in order to define where the shadows need to be. The way that we can increase the geometry of our sphere is by going into our sphere, turning on subdivide, and you can instantly see it working better. And just set this to like 3 subdivisions or maybe 4 or something like that. The more intense you have your height map, the more subdivisions you might need. So we are now already at like 6 million, but that's fine. And maybe go in light 3 and just make it like a little bit softer. Now you can especially see how the light looks softer like this. And there we go. So that already, as you can see, gives like a nicer look. So ray tracing is turned on. That's all fine. Camera A. If you want, a cool thing that you can do is you can give it some blur. So you can give it some depth of field. If you just turn on the depth of field, set the near blur all the way down. And then set the far blur a little bit down, and then just work on your focal distance. You can basically make it that you have only some slight blurring on like the outer edges, see? So here you can see with, without. So it just gives you like a tiny bit of like a blurring on the outer edges to make everything feel a little bit softer. But that's actually looking pretty cool as like a base wood, don't you think? So what we can do now is we can probably just generate an image and see up close if it is actually working well. So I'm quite surprised how little I need to actually change on my base color. Of course, this one is a little bit more colorful, but that's mostly just... that's mostly just the light and everything. I want to actually go a little bit duller because we are in a desert or in like a really warm place with like the western town. So I don't want to make it too perfect. One thing I actually forgot is let's go into our camera A and let's play around with our tone mapping. I often set my tone mapping to HAJL, which is like a more intense tone mapping, but it gives me some nicer reflections. And then I often just go ahead and like work a little bit more with like my exposure, set this to 1.2 for example, and also just work in my sky and just play around with the brightness of your sky like this. 1.4, let's do that. And then you can also hold shift and you can rotate your sky around to basically mess around with things. And I quite like this, that we have like one area that is quite dark, maybe even that we want to like rotate one of these lights to be a little bit more down near the bottom. Like that. And that always just gives like a nice contrast if you want to make like a nice material render. Okay, so that is all pretty good. Let's see, we've done that stuff. I'm just checking that I did not forget anything. And that we can start by making our render. No, I think we can save our scene and I think that we can start with our render. So over here, did we already give it the right location? No, we did not. I just need to give it the right location where we save our images. So images. And this is going to be plain wood. Because whenever you set this in a different scene, it sometimes also changes it in here. Or like your location. But this should be fine. So right now it's 1920 by 1920. Let's set this a bit higher to... Sorry, a bit higher to 3840 by 3840. I like 4K. And it doesn't take too long to render. So we got 3840 by 3840. At a JPEG, samples 256, honestly, at that point you cannot really see that much anyway. So what you can do now is you can just press render image. And then what it will do is it will render a nice image for us. But now I'm quite excited how easily the base color went. We just happened to hit that gradient map that is just right. Which is always nice when stuff happens like that. Maybe we can make like the darkening under some of our edges a little bit darker, for example. But let's go ahead and open up our image. Oh, whoops, I made a mistake. The image is accidentally looking at the main camera. You need to go down here, and in the render cameras, just go ahead and get rid of the, or let's add our camera A and then get rid of the main camera just by turning it off. And now it will actually render our camera A. So let's go ahead and try that once more by rendering our image. And let's see, so after we've done this, so our roughness is done. We got this stuff done, so I think then what we can do is we can start by first of all creating our variations of our wood. Let's do that first, like some color variations. And after that we can probably continue on with like our planks. Maybe do like some exposing. Yeah, let's do some exposing, that would also be handy. And we will still do that in this chapter, so I just want to create a quick render, which for some reason is taking longer than normal. But that should be then fine once we've done that. In the meantime, we can already like go in here and just have like a quick look. First of all, what we can do is we can work on the exposing. So is the render done? No, it's not done yet. With the exposing, what I mean is that we are able to basically expose things like the opacity, and we can give it very specific names. I will show you how this works. Let's say we have over here our white dirt. What I can do is next to my opacity, I can drop this little button down here, and I can press expose as new graph input. Now in here I can call this white dirt amount. And I want to copy the identifier also in the label. The identifier is for the system to know what it is. The label is for us to know what it is. And in the group, you can give the group like base color. And then it will be placed in its own little group. And why am I doing this? Later on we are going to create our planks. However, we will not actually be using this graph. We will be exporting this graph and then building upon it. When we export, we do not really have access to all of these nodes anymore. However, when we expose the values of these nodes, it will give us access to it. So let's say I press OK now. The way that you can see this, now you can see that I can no longer change it in here. But I can now go in my plain wood. And then what you can see here is you can see a parameter. What this parameter will look like is if you go to preview, this is how it will look like. Base color. And then here you can see that I can change it. And here if I like click on this one, you can see that I can now increase and decrease this value very easily. And that's the entire goal of this. So just like that, I can, for example, run through this. I can say, replace color range. Let's expose the new graph input and call this one base, or let's do main color, for example. Copy in layer. And add this to your base color, or you can just press the drop down and select base color. And then press OK. Now what are we doing here? We are adding some dirt over here. For this dirt, you can expose this if you want. I don't think... For this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my dirt a little bit darker. And I'm just going to expose the opacity so that we can increase or decrease the dirt amount. So we can go in here and we can say, this is going to be... grain underscore dirt. Copy this into your label and add this to our base color group. Press OK. Then we add some of these streaks, that's fine. Then this one is quite important. So this is going to be dark dirt overlay. And we can then go ahead and copy and paste this into our label. And we can set this to be our base color. And we can once again just press OK. So dark dirt overlay, check. Now we add our knots over here. Those are our knots. That is a good one actually. So if we change the color of our wood, we would most likely also want to change the color of our knots. Now for now we can try doing it in here. So, oh no, wait, that gives us like a lot of extra. Wait, let's go ahead and just add a replace color range like this. Set the source color to be like one of these colors. And set your target color to be your source color. And source range all the way up. Doing it this way, I only need to expose my target color. So that way I can control all of the colors with this. Knots underscore color. See? And also you go into the base color. And let's press OK. Ta-da! Easy does it. So we got this stuff done. What's this one? This one is okay, like the cuts, that's fine. So that's all pretty good. We can go into our histogram range, and in our position, we can expose this and call this, for example, wood roughness. Add this to a label and add this to a group called roughness. And just like that, we also now have control over this. We can also do the same with our dirt over here. We can expose this and call this dirt roughness. And in the roughness node. And just like that, we can have all of this control in here, which is really nice. This one we can expose and call this normal strength. And now because we don't have a height map, we can just add this to normal, but also anything that we do in our height map, we can also add to our normal. So let's say what would be something that we can add in our height map. Maybe like edge damage amount. Let's expose this one and call this edge damage amount. Add this to our group normal, because this will just be translated into normal. And now pretty cool thing. So over here you can see that the intensity is very, very low. However, the minimum and the maximum over here is between 0 and 16. But we don't need that. We can be like between 0 and 0.5, for example. And that way it will make it easier for us to move our slider around. Because at 0.5 it will just stop instead of at 16. That means that we no longer have the issue that we need to like very specifically enter our values. We can just drag our slider and it will all just look a little bit better. Now here we have some wood warping. That's fine. I'm just going to leave that stuff. And I think I'm quite happy with what we got over here. Maybe I can do something like our knots amount. So here we have like did we use our random scale by any chance? Yes, we did. Random mask. Let's expose this and call this knots underscore amount. And then I'm going to show you another cool thing. Into the group, normal. And now the cool thing for this is that we have a second type generator that needs to stay exactly the same as the first one. We can simply go to the second type generator, go to the random mask, and we can say knots amount, which means that it will reference the first one. So it will always stay the exact same value. And that's all perfect. At this point we can save our scene. And now if we go ahead and go into Marmoset, you can see that nothing has really changed, although I might have increased accidentally my dirt a bit more. But we can also open up our image. And tada! Here is our first wood, which is looking nice and realistic. I'm quite happy with that. Now with this done, we can go ahead and start by just setting my base. So I accidentally increased the dirt. So I'm just going to go into my plain wood. And now if we go to parameters, we can go to our dark dirt overlay and tone this down a little bit more. To like 0.3 as a default. So what I'm going to show you now is presets. These presets are handy if we want to just quickly change the color and the look of our wood without needing to change all of these settings non-stop. We can do this by going into presets. And we can first of all get started and add a label and just call this wood underscore 01. Once that is done, just press new. What it will now have done is it will have created a wood 01. Now we are not actually going to change wood 01. What we're going to do is we are going to press wood 02 and press new again. Now what you can see is that now we have a wood 01 and a wood 02. So we can go into the wood 02 and now we can start just changing. So let's say we go into our base color and we want to make our main color to be a bit more like the really brown stuff. We can go over here, we can grab our color picker and we can actually just make this like a brown color. Looks like that we need to do this. I think it's not able to really pick the image exactly the way I want it to. Yeah, here it's not, so we kind of like need to just do it by hand. But we are able, I feel like it's more like a red purplish, no. So we are able to just very easily change the color of our wood. I don't know, maybe let's actually have a look over here, that might be better. I want to have it like, so this is like the one that we have now. I want to have it like a bit more of like a brownish color. Maybe I can pick from this area. Oh wow, I was literally super close with it. Okay, so now for example we have our main wood. Now that we created our main wood, we noticed that our white dirt amount is a little bit too much, so we tone that down. We notice our dark dirt amount can be a little bit more, because it is harder to see. And we can see that our knots color can be a little bit darker, to kind of like fit in. So just like that, we have changed all of these areas. Now we can also change the roughness, for example. So let's say that now this roughness, if we look at our thumbnail, because we have made it darker, that will also make our roughness darker. So I can now go into my wood roughness and I can just make this like a little bit lighter again to compensate for the darker color that we have. And then of course you have a normal, but we don't really need to do anything with that. I can then press update. This is very important. If you forget to do this, it will not save, because update just means saving. And now see the magic happen. Wood 01, tick, it becomes wood 01, wood 02, and it instantly becomes wood 02. If I leave this on wood 02 and I go into Marmoset, you can see that it has instantly changed the wood. And that's the power of Substance, how easily that we can change this. I will do one more, which is going to be like this very just old looking wood, and it's very dull. So let's say wood 03 and press new. And in our wood 03, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set my main color to be this like very dull looking color. I'm going to set my knots color, then also of course the same way to kind of like compensate for it. And then I'm going to set my dark dirt overlay, or maybe my white dirt overlay. Let's increase my white dirt overlay and my dark dirt to make it like a little bit more of like a stronger color. Okay, so we got that. Now let's have a look at our roughness. Roughness looks, let's make it a little bit duller. So this roughness is just like, it's a very boring looking wood. Maybe 0.75. And maybe in our normal, we can now also go ahead and we can like double click on our normal map and zoom in. And if we go back to our plain wood, we can go to set the normal edge damage. And now you can see what I mean, that I can just very carefully like change this around like that. It might have even been a little bit less. Let's do 0.01. So we make it like a little bit of like a stronger effect. And maybe, just maybe, we can also go ahead and we can also go in our plain wood and set our knots amount to be a bit more over here. So you see, so, and that will just automatically change everything by just adding a few more. So let's do 0.65. There we go. Let's see how that looks. Press update, go in here, and there we go. And just like that, we have multiple different woods. Maybe make our knots a little bit lighter, but that's about it. So that is the power of this. We can now go ahead and we can just make a lot of different changes for this. Let's make this a bit darker. Let's see how that looks. Here, see, so that blends in nicely. So what we will be doing in the next chapter is we will start by actually creating our planks. And our planks is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be like, not this one, it's going to really be like this outer layer. I have an idea of what I want to do. I can sort of see it here, but I know, I'll see which kind of planks. We can have multiple different planks, so that does not really matter. So let's go ahead and continue with that in our next chapter.